In the pantheon of football's greatest stories, the dynasties, the rivalries, the moments that stopped the world, there is one story that stands entirely alone. Not because of the trophies, not because of the goals, and not because of the scandal, but because it is the only story in the history of this sport where an entire city, a real, breathing, suffering city of over 1 million human beings, decided that a footballer was their god. Here at Goalline Stories, where we go beyond the scorelines to find the moments that truly define the beautiful game, we want you to subscribe if you haven't already, because the story we are about to tell you is exactly why this channel exists. His name was Diego Armando Maradona, and what he did in the city of Naples between 1984 and 1991 was not a football career. It was a spiritual event that an entire generation of Neapolitans will carry with them until their last breath. To truly understand the magnitude of what happened, you need to forget everything you think you know about football transfers, about superstars arriving at new clubs, about fans getting excited for a new season. What happened in Naples in the summer of 1984 was something that has never happened before in sport and will almost certainly never happen again, because it required the perfect collision of two forces, a city broken by history and a man shaped by poverty, finding each other at exactly the right moment, in exactly the right place, as if the universe had quietly been arranging it all along. Diego Armando Maradona was born on October 30th, 1960 in Villa Fiorito, a shantytown on the outskirts of Buenos Aires, where the streets were unpaved, the houses were built from whatever materials a family could find, and the concept of a future was something that belonged to other people in other parts of the city. He was the fifth of 8 children in a family that survived on almost nothing, and from the earliest age, the only thing that separated young Diego from the crushing weight of that poverty was a football. A single, worn, barely inflated football that he treated with the kind of devotion most children reserve for their most treasured possessions. By the age of 15, he was already playing professional football in Argentina. By 16, he was knocking on the door of the national team, and by the time European scouts started making the journey to Buenos Aires to see this impossible teenager with their own eyes, the football world was already running out of words to describe what they were watching. In 1982, Barcelona came calling with a transfer fee that broke every record in existence, and for a brief, glittering moment, it looked as though the fairy tale had found its perfect setting. But Barcelona was not kind to Maradona. Brutal, career-threatening tackles went unpunished, a serious hepatitis diagnosis nearly ended everything, and the political tensions inside one of football's most complicated institutions slowly suffocated whatever joy he had arrived with. By 1984, the relationship was over, and Diego Maradona, bruised, frustrated, and carrying a fury that had nowhere to go, was ready to write a completely different chapter. What nobody could have predicted was just how extraordinary that chapter was going to be. On July 5th, 1984, a plane landed in Naples carrying a short, stocky 23-year-old from Buenos Aires. And what greeted him was not a press conference or a polite welcome from club officials. It was 75,000 human beings packed into the Stadio San Paolo just to watch him stand on a stage and say hello. Not to play a match, not to win a trophy, simply to exist in the same city as them for the first time. The streets surrounding the stadium were completely gridlocked for hours. Children had abandoned their classrooms. Grown men who had lived through wars and poverty and decades of being told their city didn't matter were standing in the afternoon heat with tears running down their faces, and nobody thought that was strange, because in Naples, in the summer of 1984, this felt like exactly the appropriate response to what was happening. To understand why, you need to understand what Naples was in 1984 and what it had been for most of its history. This was a city that the rest of Italy treated with open contempt, a southern city that northern Italians mocked as poor, dirty, and criminal, a place where visiting fans would hold their noses as they walked off the train and carry banners that said things so cruel and so dehumanizing that repeating them here feels almost wrong. Unemployment was devastating, organized crime ran through the city's veins, and the football club that was supposed to be a source of pride had never, not once in their entire history, won the Serie A title. Naples was a city that had been told in 1,000 different ways for a very long time that it would never be enough. And then Maradona stepped up to the microphone, looked out at those 75,000 people, and said the words that would bind him to this city forever. That he wanted to become the idol of the poor Neapolitan boys because they were like him when he was poor in Buenos Aires, and that Naples would be his home. And unlike almost every grand statement made at a football press conference, he meant every single word of it. For the first 2 seasons, Maradona did exactly what he had promised. He embedded himself into the fabric of Naples in a way that no foreign footballer had ever embedded themselves into a city before or since. He didn't live behind the walls of a gated compound or surround himself exclusively with agents and club officials. He ate in the restaurants where ordinary Neapolitans ate. He learned their dialect. He walked their streets. He understood instinctively that his relationship with this city was something that existed far beyond the 90 minutes he spent on a football pitch twice a week. And then, in the summer of 1986, everything that had been building between Diego Maradona and the city of Naples was given a stage so enormous, so globally significant, that what happened next didn't just change his relationship with Naples, it changed his relationship with the entire world. The 1986 World Cup in Mexico was supposed to be a tournament, but for anyone who witnessed it, it became something closer to a one-man exhibition of what human beings are capable of when talent and will and fury and genius all exist in the same body at the same time. Argentina versus England in the quarterfinal carried a political weight that went far beyond football. The Falklands War had ended just 4 years earlier, and the tension between these two nations was something you could feel through the television screen. And in the 51st minute of that match, Maradona punched the ball into the net with his hand. The referee missed it. The goal stood, and he described it afterwards with a smile as the hand of God. But what happened just 4 minutes later made the entire world forget the controversy completely as he picked up the ball in his own half, turned, and proceeded to run through the entire English defense, past one player, then another, twisting and accelerating across 60 yards of Mexican turf in 11 seconds, before sliding the ball into the net in a moment that was later voted the greatest goal in the history of football, and it wasn't particularly close. Argentina won the World Cup, Maradona won everything, and back in Naples, the streets erupted as though it was their own victory, because to every single person in that city, it absolutely was. But the same city that had lifted Maradona to the heavens could not protect him from the darkness that was quietly closing in around him. And the story of what happened next is not one of villainy or weakness, but of a deeply human being crushed beneath the impossible weight of being everything to everyone for too long. Naples in the late 1980s was a city where the Camorra, the Neapolitan mafia, operated in the open, and they were drawn to Maradona with the inevitability of gravity, pulling him slowly into a world of late nights, dangerous company, and cocaine that started as an escape from pressure and gradually became a prison of its own making. The football was still extraordinary. A second Serie A title arrived in 1989 alongside the European Cup. But behind the goals and the glory, the people closest to Diego could see that something fundamental was changing, that the fire which had made him the greatest player on earth was now burning through its last reserves, and that the city which had given him everything was helpless to pull him back from the edge. In 1991, a drug test came back positive for cocaine. A 15-month ban followed, and Maradona left Naples without a farewell match, without a parade, without a proper goodbye. The man who had arrived to 75,000 screaming believers simply slipping out of the city like a secret, leaving behind murals, memories, and a grief that Naples has never quite finished grieving. Diego Armando Maradona passed away on November 25, 2020, at the age of 60, and the grief that swept through Naples that day was not the ordinary sadness that follows the death of a beloved public figure. It was something rawer and more primal than that. The kind of loss that a city feels when it loses a part of its own identity, when something that had been woven into the DNA of a place for decades is suddenly and permanently gone. Shops closed, schools closed, and people poured into the streets carrying candles and flowers and handwritten letters addressed to a man who would never read them, surrounding the murals that had decorated the walls of Naples for 30 years with the kind of devotion that, in any other city in the world, would have seemed excessive, but in Naples felt like the only response that made any sense at all. The city renamed their stadium in his honor, the Stadio Diego Armando Maradona, because there was simply no other way to adequately express what he had meant to them. And because in Naples, the idea of that building carrying any other name felt genuinely unthinkable. What Diego Maradona gave this city was not just 2 Serie A titles or a collection of goals that will be replayed for as long as football exists. He gave an entire generation of people who had been told they were nothing the experience of feeling, for one extraordinary period of their lives, like they were everything. And that is not something a city ever forgets. If this story moved you, if you understand that football at its greatest is never really just about football, then Goalline Stories is exactly where you belong. We tell these stories every single week, the ones that go beyond the statistics and the transfer fees to find the moments where the sport becomes something genuinely human. And if you haven't subscribed yet, doing so right now costs you nothing but means the world to us. This has been Goalline Stories, and we will see you in the next chapter.